That is not my name, the little black girl mouthed, lifting a trembling wrist with a hospital bracelet that read Amelia Hart. Adrian Cole stopped so suddenly the donor group behind him nearly bumped his back. She's confused, Vivian Hart said softly, already smiling at the doctor. Trauma makes children repeat things. The girl's eyes stayed on the discharge tablet, and this time she whispered, "Please don't let her sign." 3 hours earlier, the Cole children's wing looked too clean to hold fear. White floors shone like polished ice. Glass walls reflected nurses, donors, security guards, and the gold letters mounted above the hallway. Cole Children's Wing. Adrian Cole walked beneath his own name with a practiced expression, listening as the hospital director praised new monitors, private rooms, faster intake systems, and the foundation that had paid for all of it. He nodded at the right moments. He shook hands. He did not look closely at the children. Then he heard a small rubber sole drag against the floor near the discharge counter. A little girl stood there in a blue hospital gown too large for her shoulders. One sock had slipped halfway off her heel. Her hair was gathered unevenly with a worn purple tie. In one arm, she held an old stuffed bear pressed tight against her ribs. On her wrist was a bright white bracelet, so new that the black ink looked slightly smeared under the lights. Amelia Hart. Beside her stood Vivian Hart in a cream coat, pearl earrings, and the gentle posture of a woman accustomed to being trusted. Her hand rested on the girl's shoulder, not hard enough for anyone to object, but not loose enough for the child to forget it. Dr. Helen Marks held a tablet, her thumb hovering above the final discharge confirmation. A social worker waited with a folder. A security guard stood politely at the end of the hall. Everything looked official. That was what bothered Adrian. Official things were supposed to feel boring. This felt staged. "Doctor," Vivian said with a sad little breath. "Amelia has been inventing names all morning. The accident frightened her. Children do this when their world feels unsafe." The girl did not look at Vivian. She looked at the tablet. Then she moved her lips without sound. Adrian almost kept walking. He was not a doctor. He was not family. He was a donor in a tailored suit, surrounded by people who expected him to smile for photographs. But years ago, when his daughter Elise lost most of her hearing during treatment, Adrian had learned to read lips because he refused to let silence take her away from him. So he saw the words, "That is not my name." He felt the hallway narrow. He looked again at the bracelet. Amelia Hart. He looked at the child's wrist. Beneath the new plastic was a thin red line, as if another bracelet had been pulled off too quickly. Adrian did not believe her yet, but he no longer believed the room either. He stepped toward the counter and said, calmly, "Doctor, before you sign that discharge, may I ask why her bracelet looks freshly printed?" Vivian's smile did not break. The girl lowered her sleeve, and under the cuff, Adrian saw a tiny strip of clear glue catching the light. Dr. Marks did not sign, but she did not close the discharge screen either. That small hesitation made everyone choose sides without saying so. The nurse stepped closer to the counter. The social worker tightened both hands around her folder. At the end of the hall, the security guard straightened, not threatening anyone, just reminding the little girl that doors in hospitals could open only when adults allowed them to. Vivian Hart's face stayed gentle. That was the first thing Adrian noticed. No panique. No surprise. No injured confusion. She simply opened her folder, as if this exact moment had been rehearsed. "Mr. Cole," she said softly, "I appreciate your compassion, truly, but this is why we try not to involve strangers in child welfare releases." She laid 3 papers on the counter. The first showed the child's name as Amelia Hart, temporary resident of Hartwell House. The second was a yellow psychological intake sheet with a neat typed line, "Possible identity confusion after trauma." The third had a digital guardianship code, a signature, and an email chain from County Child Welfare. Everything looked official. Clean ink, correct stamps, the kind of paper that made a frightened child look less believable than a printer. Dr. Marks glanced at Adrian, uncomfortable. "Legally, Mrs. Hart is authorized to take her. If we delay without cause, The hospital may be exposed. The social worker nodded too quickly. Hartwell House has handled difficult placements for years. Vivian gave a tired little smile, the kind that asked everyone to admire her patience. Then she bent toward the girl. Sweetheart, tell them your name is Amelia. The child's shoulders folded inward, but her chin did not drop. She did not shout. She did not cry. She only held the old stuffed bear tighter against her chest, one thumb rubbing the worn purple tie around its ear. Her eyes moved past the doctor, past Adrian, past the security guard, and stopped on Vivian's white leather purse. Vivian saw it too. Without changing her smile, she eased the purse behind her hip. You see, she said, attention worsens the episode. The word episode did its work. The nurse's sympathy became caution. The guard looked at the little girl as if she might run. Dr. Marks's thumb hovered again over the tablet. Adrian still did not intervene with money, rank, or anger. He had seen powerful lies before. They survived because they sounded reasonable. So he lowered himself slightly, not enough to frighten her, just enough that she did not have to look up as far. You don't have to speak, he said. Just look at what you want me to see. Vivian's fingers tightened on the folder. That is not clinically appropriate. The girl's eyes went to the purse again, then to her own bracelet, then back to the purse. Adrian followed the movement. A zipper had been left open by less than an inch. Inside, caught against the pale lining, was a tiny broken piece of white plastic, curved like the snapped lock from a hospital wristband. Adrian kept his eyes on the narrow opening of Vivian's purse for 1 second too long. Vivian noticed. Her hand moved down, elegant and unhurried, and the zipper slid shut with a soft metallic click. Children collect things, she said, as if answering a question no one had asked. Especially children who come from unstable homes. The little girl's fingers tightened around the bear, but her face did not collapse. That was what held Adrian in place. She was afraid, yes, but not confused. Confused children searched faces for answers. This child was tracking objects. The purse, the bracelet, the tablet, the exit. Adrian turned to Dr. Marks. Scan the bracelet again, he said. Slowly, please. Vivian gave a small nod, almost generous. Of course, we have nothing to hide. The nurse lifted the handheld scanner. Its red line passed over the barcode on the girl's wrist. A clean beep sounded. On the tablet, the file appeared exactly as it had before. Amelia Hart. Female. 9 years old. Temporary placement. Hartwell House. Vivian tilted her head toward Adrian with patient sympathy, as if the machine had politely corrected him. But Adrian was no longer looking at the name. He was looking at the thin colored border around the barcode. Green. He had walked through enough donor tours to know the color system. Green bands came from the long-term recovery unit on the 6th floor. Emergency pediatric intake printed blue-striped bands. Dr. Marks saw it a moment later. Her lips parted slightly. That's odd, she murmured. The nurse frowned and turned the child's wrist with careful fingers. The girl flinched, not from pain, but from habit. This wasn't printed at our ER station, the nurse said. Vivian's smile stayed in place, but one eyelid flickered. It was almost nothing. A skipped note in a song. The first bracelet got wet, she said. Nurse Paula replaced it around dawn. I remember because Amelia was very upset. It was a reasonable explanation. Too reasonable. Too complete. Dr. Marks tapped through the shift schedule. The hallway seemed to become quieter with every touch of her finger. Paula wasn't here at dawn, she said. She clocked out at 12:04 a.m. Vivian gave a soft, disappointed sigh. Doctor, with respect, hospitals misplace shift notes every day. A clerical mistake is not a crime. The social worker nodded, relieved to have a sentence to stand behind. That's true. Bands are reprinted. Adrian did not answer. The child slowly raised her free hand. With one fingernail, she scratched under the lower edge of the bracelet. Not wildly, not like a tantrum, She dragged her nail over one exact spot until the plastic lifted enough to catch the light. There, beneath a clear smear of glue, was a hairline cut. Someone had sliced the band open and pressed it back together. Dr. Marks stopped breathing for half a second. Was her original bracelet removed? Adrian asked quietly. Or cut? No one answered. Vivian bent toward the girl, her voice still soft. You're scaring yourself, sweetheart. But the girl did not look at her. She looked at the cut, then at Adrian, and touched the purple tie in the bear's ear. The same blue-purple thread was trapped beneath the glued plastic, proving the bracelet had been sealed after it brushed against something she already owned. The purple thread changed the shape of the silence. Dr. Marks looked at the bracelet, then at the bear, then at the child's face, as if the three things had begun speaking a language no chart could translate. Vivian did not let the pause grow. She lifted her phone and called the hospital attorney on speaker. Within 30 seconds, a calm male voice filled the hallway. If the guardian documentation is valid, the hospital should not restrain the minor without clear evidence of abuse or falsification. Vivian lowered her eyes, almost humbly. Thank you, Mr. Bell. It was neat, legal, safe. Dr. Marks's shoulders tightened. Adrian understood the trap. If he pushed too hard, Vivian would become the reasonable adult, and the little girl would become the disturbance. So he did not accuse anyone. He looked at the attorney's name glowing on the phone, then at the frightened child. A limited check, he said. 3 questions. No tashing. No coaching. If the answers match nothing in your system, you sign. If one answer matches something the file does not explain, you pause. Vivian's smile returned. She thought she could survive questions. As her legal guardian, I have the right to remain present. Then remain, Adrian said. Quietly, Dr. Marks pulled the privacy curtain halfway around the bed. It made a small cloth wall between Maya and Vivian's hand. Though Vivian's shoes remained visible below it, cream heels pointed toward the child, like 2 pale warnings. What is your name? Dr. Marks asked. The girl swallowed. The bruise at her throat moved. Maya Brooks. Vivian exhaled softly. That's the false name episode. Dr. Marks did not look at her. Your mother's name? The girl's fingers found the purple tie on the bear's ear. Leah Brooks. Vivian's voice slipped through the curtain, smooth and wounded. Her mother abandoned her. Please don't trigger the delusion. For the first time, the girl's eyes sharpened. She didn't leave me, she said. It was not loud. It was worse than loud. It was certain. Adrian felt the words land somewhere below the legal language. Still, certainty was not proof. The girl seemed to know that. She looked at the wall sign beside the nurse's station, then tapped the bear's stomach 3 times. 1, 2, 3. Then she tapped the metal bedrail twice. 1, 2. Dr. Marks frowned. Adrian followed the rhythm. Room 32? The girl nodded once. Vivian gave a sympathetic little laugh. Children overhear room numbers. Dr. Marks searched the bed movement log. Her thumb stopped. At 2:17 a.m., an unidentified female child had been placed in room 32. At 5:42 a.m., that entry had been merged into Amelia Hart in room 18. The test had not solved anything. It had made the wrongness measurable. Vivian turned quickly toward the attorney's phone. That is still administrative. But she had made one mistake. She said administrative before Dr. Marks had read the merge time aloud. Adrian saw Dr. Marks lift her eyes. The doctor had not confirmed there was a merge. The attorney had not mentioned a timestamp. Vivian had answered a fact that had not been spoken yet, and the girl's small hand stopped rubbing the bear. Vivian's smile remained, but it had stopped reaching her eyes. Doctor, she said, turning from the phone as if protecting everyone from embarrassment. This has gone far enough. A frightened child has repeated a room number. That does not justify turning a discharge hallway into an interrogation. Dr. Marks did not answer. She was still looking at Vivian, because Vivian had known the word merge before anyone had said it. The security guard shifted his weight. The social worker closed her folder halfway, then opened it again, uncertain which version of the room was safer. Let's review the camera near room 32, Dr. Marks said at last. Vivian's posture changed by less than an inch. Her shoulders rose, then settled. No, she said gently. Not in front of her. She has been through enough. Then she reached for the stuffed bear. Maya pulled it back so fast the 4-tape tugged at her hand. The clear tube trembled. Amelia? Vivian whispered, almost tenderly. Give me that filthy thing. The word struck the hallway harder than any shout could have. Filthy. Not damaged. Not old. Filthy. Adrian looked at the bear, then at Maya's face. The child did not look ashamed. She looked protective, as if the bear was not a toy but a witness. Vivian turned to Dr. Marks with a sorrowful patience. She attaches to dirty objects. It is documented in her neglect profile. Adrian moved a chair from beside the wall and placed it near the girl's bed. Slowly, deliberately, he sat lower than her. No cameras. No speech. No performance. Maya, he said, using the name before the hospital had earned the right to deny it. Show me, not them. Show me what they changed. Vivian inhaled sharply. The little girl's eyes flicked to her, then to Dr. Marks. Her fingers found a crooked seam along the bear's stomach, sewn with blue thread instead of brown. She held the bear out with both hands. Dr. Marks took it like evidence, not trash. With small scissors from a suture tray, she clipped the first blue stitch. Then the second. Then the third. A folded strip of white plastic slid into her palm. For 1 second, no one moved. Dr. Marks unfolded it under the fluorescent light. The old bracelet was creased, stained at the edge, but readable. Maya Brooks. ER intake. 2:17 a.m. room 32. Adrian felt something cold and precise move through his chest. Not pity. Not yet. Recognition. The kind that came when a lie stopped being atmosphere and became an object you could hold. Vivian recovered first. That could belong to another child, she said. She could have found it. Maya did not argue. She only pushed up her sleeve. Beneath the new bracelet, her skin carried a red crescent where plastic had cut too deep. Dr. Marks brought the old band closer. On its broken lock was a tiny brown-red smear. Blood. The curve matched the mark on Maya's wrist. Then Dr. Marks turned the strip over. On the inside, in faint black marker, someone had written 2 initials. HB. Adrian knew those initials. Henry Bell, the hospital attorney still listening on speaker, had personally approved Hartwell House as a trusted placement partner for the Cole Children's Wing. For a moment, even the attorney on speaker said nothing. The initials on the inside of the old bracelet sat under the fluorescent light like a signature left in ash. HB. Dr. Marks looked at the phone. Henry, she said carefully. Why would your initials be on a discarded intake band? There was a soft rustle on the line, papers moving somewhere far from the hallway. I review placement irregularities, Henry Bell replied. That does not mean I altered medical identification. Vivian placed one hand over her chest, wounded now, not frightened. This is exactly why these matters should not be handled in a public corridor. A traumatized child, an old bracelet, initials anyone could write. Mr. Cole, this is becoming dangerous. Adrian did not look at her. He looked at the bracelet, then at the gold letters of his own name on the wall beyond the glass. Freeze the discharge, he said. Freeze the file. Nobody edits anything. Vivian's phone vibrated almost immediately. She glanced down, and her face softened into professional concern. My counsel just sent notice. Any delay may constitute unlawful interference with a protected child placement. Dr. Marks's jaw tightened. The social worker looked relieved again, as if legal language had arrived to rescue her from moral responsibility. Adrian turned to the hospital IT manager, who had joined the gathering with a laptop pressed to his chest. Pull every child discharge in the last 18 months with 3 markers. Night intake. Name merge before discharge. Destination linked to Hartwell House or private medical transport. Vivian gave a quiet laugh. You cannot search vulnerable children's records because one girl is confused. Maya lifted her head. Her voice was hoarse, but steady. Blue van. Everyone turned. She rubbed the bear's torn seam with one finger. They put Jalen in the blue van. Dr. Marks bent closer. Who is Jalen? Maya swallowed. Jalen Reed. He slept by the window at Hartwell. He said his grandma came looking, but Miss Vivian told him Peter was his new name. Vivian's mask did not fall. It hardened. Children repeat stories from other children. That facility houses trauma cases. The IT manager's laptop chimed. A list filled the screen. At first, it looked like data. Names, dates, transfer numbers, discharge destinations. Then the pattern became human. 12 children. Each had entered under one name between midnight and dawn. Each name had been merged into another identity within hours. Each discharge line said family care. But the addresses did not lead to families. They led to Hartwell House, Shelbridge Transport, or a private pediatric transfer service Adrian had approved 3 years earlier after Henry Bell recommended it. Maya stared at the screen until one name appeared. Jalen Reed. Merged into Peter Hale. Discharged to family care. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Adrian felt the hallway tilt. His foundation had paid for the scanners, the doors, the wristbands, the software that recorded every pill and every pulse. And still, a child had needed a stuffed bear to prove her own name. Henry Bell's voice returned, controlled and cold. Adrian, don't let emotion damage years of trusted partnership. Trusted partnership. Adrian looked at Vivian, then at Henry's initials on the bracelet. And for the first time, he understood he had not simply missed a mistake. He had trusted the wrong people with children who had no one powerful enough to be believed. Adrian did not raise his voice. That was what made the room more afraid of him. He looked at Henry Bell's initials on the old bracelet, then at Vivian's perfect cream coat, then at Maya's small hand curled around the torn bear. Final verification, he said. Vivian blinked. Excuse me? I will not obstruct the discharge if final verification clears, Adrian said. Each word calm enough to sound like surrender. On the video call, a board member exhaled with relief. Henry Bell said, "That is the appropriate path." Vivian's shoulders softened for the first time. She believed she had pulled the hospital back into procedure. "Then Amelia should be taken to transport," she said. "The gala begins in 2 hours, and this child has been put through enough." Adrian nodded once. It looked like agreement. It was not. While Dr. Marks signed a temporary observation note instead of a discharge release, Adrian sent 4 silent messages from his phone. To security, lock every unregistered medical exit. To IT, clone the camera feeds and keycard logs now, before legal requests begin. To his assistant, Naomi, find the blue van and do not let it leave the property. To Dr. Marks, activate your training camera. Hospital policy allowed recording during contested pediatric transfer reviews. Vivian did not know that. Maya was placed in a wheelchair because Vivian insisted the child was too emotionally unstable to walk safely. Maya did not fight. She sat with her knees together, one sock twisted, the bear in her lap, and the purple hair clipped loose near her braid. Vivian walked beside her with the folder against her chest and the white purse hooked over her arm. Down the corridor, donors were beginning to arrive for the evening gala. Florists carried white lilies past security. A staff member rolled a gold podium toward the auditorium. Vivian's name was already printed on the program. Guardian Angel Award. Near camera 7, where the hallway bent toward the private transport elevators, Vivian leaned down. Her lips barely moved. "One more sound," she whispered. "And your mother stays missing." Maya's face did not change, but her fingers opened. The purple clip dropped onto the tile with a tiny plastic tick. Vivian did not notice. Adrian did. From the security room, he watched the feed beside the IT manager. The child had marked the camera angle like a witness pointing from across a courtroom. Vivian stopped near the elevator, opened her purse, and shifted the folder inside. The camera caught the contents for 3 seconds. Blank white wristbands, a small brown bottle with a dropper cap, private transfer forms, and a gray access card not issued by the hospital. Naomi's text arrived at the same moment. Blue van in basement C. No hospital logo. Driver has Hartwell badge. Then the board's order came through. Complete transfer before gala to avoid donor disruption. Adrian read it twice. Vivian did not need truth. She needed timing. The elevator doors opened. Vivian looked back and saw Adrian standing at the far end of the hall. No longer surrounded by donors, no longer smiling. Dr. Marks stood beside him, camera light blinking blue. Maya lifted her eyes. For the first time, Vivian understood the little girl had not dropped the clip by accident, and she was no longer standing alone. By the time the gala began, Vivian had put her smile back on. The hospital lobby had been transformed into a room of soft gold light, white lilies, crystal glasses, and donors speaking gently over polished floors. Behind the stage, a blue banner read Cole Children's Foundation, and beneath it, in silver letters, waited the words Guardian Angel Award. Vivian Hart stepped to the podium as if nothing in the world had touched her. Applause rose around her. In the back row, Maya sat beside Dr. Marks with the stuffed bear on her knees. The old purple tie looped through its ear like something rescued from a fire. Adrian stood near the side aisle, still enough that no one noticed his hands were shaking. Children need adults who protect them from chaos, Vivian said. Her eyes swept the room and rested on Adrian for half a second. Not adults who create it. A few donors murmured approval. Then the screen behind her changed. No music. No announcement. Just a hospital image blown large across the wall. 2 wristbands side by side. The new one read Amelia Hart. The cut one read Maya Brooks. ER intake. 2:17 a.m. Room 32. A sound moved through the room. Not quite a gasp. Not quite a prayer. Adrian walked up without hurry. Dr. Marks followed, then the IT director, an independent attorney, and a child protection investigator. Adrian did not look triumphant. He looked hurt. Tonight, this hospital planned to honor a woman for bringing children home, he said. Before that happens, we need to ask what home means. When a child's name has been changed, the evidence appeared in order. Room 32, 2:17 a.m. Emerge at 5:42. Vivian entering room 32. Her purse opening under camera 7. Blank wristbands. A brown dropper bottle. Private transfer forms. The blue van waiting in basement C. Then the audio filled the lobby, quiet and terrible. One more sound, and your mother stays missing. Vivian stepped back from the podium, then forward again, choosing tears because anger would betray her. This is edited, she said. A billionaire is protecting his foundation by sacrificing a woman who has spent her life caring for children. For a moment, the room wanted to believe her. Polite people often preferred clean lies. Maya stood. Adrian did not reach for her. He did not push her toward the stage. She walked on her own, one sock sliding against the marble, the bear tucked under her arm. Dr. Marks lowered the microphone to her height. Maya held up the cut bracelet. Her hand shook, but her voice did not. My name is Maya Brooks. She turned toward the list of 12 children on the screen. Her finger stopped under one name. Jalen said his name was Jalen too. A woman in the middle rows stood so fast her chair struck the floor behind her. From her wallet, she pulled a worn school photo of a smiling boy. My grandson is Jalen Reed, she said, her voice breaking. They told me no child by that name ever came here. The room went hollow. Adrian turned to the board members seated beneath the banner. Lock the servers, he said quietly. Now. The servers were locked before Vivian reached the stairs. The applause that had lifted her minutes earlier did not return. 2 child protection investigators met her beside the stage, while the silver letters of Guardian Angel Award still glowed behind her. Vivian did not scream. She adjusted her coat, lifted her chin, and said, You are making a mistake. But when one investigator held up the frozen keycard log from room 32, and the other held the image of her purse under camera 7, even her board allies looked away. By midnight, Hartwell House was sealed. Officers found a locked cabinet behind a false panel in Vivian's office. Inside were old hospital bracelets, copied birth certificates, intake photos, handwritten name charts, and envelopes marked with private family payments. Jalen Reed was found the next morning 2 hours away, in a quiet facility with white fences and no sign on the gate. He still knew his name. He had simply stopped saying it because too many adults had told him he was wrong. Maya's mother had not abandoned her either. Leah Brooks was in a county hospital across town, recovering from the same crash that had brought Maya into the Cole Children's Wing. Her contact number had been changed by 1 digit. Her daughter's file had been separated before sunrise. When Maya entered Leah's room, she still carried the bear with the blue stitches hanging loose. Leah turned her head on the pillow. Her eyes widened first, then filled. She tried to lift her hand and could not. Maya stood still at the foot of the bed, as if the room might disappear if she moved too fast. Adrian stayed behind her. He did not touch her shoulder. He did not tell her what to feel. He only nodded once. Maya walked to the bed. The first thing she said was not, "I missed you." It was smaller and somehow deeper. "Mama," she whispered. "They changed my name." Leah's fingers found the new bracelet on Maya's wrist. This one had not been forced on. A nurse had printed it only after Maya read every letter. Maya Brooks. Leah pressed her lips to the plastic like it was proof her child had come back from a place without doors. 3 days later, Dr. Marks stood before cameras in the same lobby where the gala flowers were gone and the floor still shone too brightly. "I read the file before I listened to the child," she said. "I am sorry, Maya." Adrian spoke next, not from the podium, but beside Maya and Leah. "My name was on that wing. I thought funding it meant protecting children. I was wrong. We built a hospital that could scan a bracelet, but failed to hear a child. The Cole Foundation suspended every Hartwell partnership, funded an independent audit, and forced new discharge rules. Every child interviewed alone, every replaced bracelet preserved, every name merge reviewed outside the hospital, every placement center inspected without warning. Weeks later, Maya returned to the discharge counter, this time holding her mother's hand. The nurse asked gently, "Can you tell me your name?" Maya looked at the bracelet, then up at the adults finally waiting for her answer. "Maya Brooks," she said. "That's my name."